You probably have watched a Huberman Lab episode about learning, maybe 10 of them, and you walked away feeling like you understood the science until you sat down to study the next morning and nothing has changed. That's the gap. Knowing the science and actually using it are two completely different things. I'm a final year med student and I've spent the last few years watching more than tens of Huberman Lab episodes about learning and memory. And more importantly, testing every method inside one of the most content-heavy degrees that exist. What I'm sharing today are the ones that actually move the needle, the ones that work. And in the end, I'm going to give you a few simple tools that you can use to learn better. Most students think learning happens while they are studying. That assumption is costing you hours every single day because it's actually wrong. Here's what's actually happening when you study. Every time you encounter information, neurons fire together. When they fire together repeatedly, the connection between them gets stronger. Weaker connections get pruned. That's neuroplasticity, your brain physically rewiring itself. Neuroplasticity mainly occurs by strengthening of connections, weakening of connections, and adding new connections. But here's the key, that rewiring doesn't happen while you are reading. It happens later, during rest and during sleep. Think of your brain like a gym. When you lift weights, you are not building muscles in the session. You are breaking it down. The muscles grow during recovery, while you sleep and while you rest. Learning works the exact same way. Studying is the stimulus. Sleep and rest are where the actual growth happens. Which means two things have to be true for learning. You need focus and alertness during the session, and you need deliberate rest or sleep after it. Both, not one or the other. If you are skipping sleep to study more, you are not just tired, you are actively preventing the brain from doing the one thing that makes studying worth anything. You are putting in gym sessions and skipping every recovery day and wondering why you are not getting any stronger. Even with a rested brain and full focus, not everything you study will actually stick. There are 4 specific things that makes information memorable. Most students don't know any of them, and if you're not hitting them, the information will pass through your brain like water through a sieve. The first is novelty. When information is genuinely new, your brain flags it as worth keeping. It's wired to pay attention to things that it hasn't seen before. If you see a new weird animal, you'll remember it instantly, right? You don't need repetitions to remember it. And the second one is repetition. When you repeatedly see or recall the same thing, you will remember that. It's like the first time you try to remember a phone number. You read and recall it multiple times, and then you can remember that. That's repetition. The third one is association. Isolated facts don't stick. Facts that connected to something you already know do. Your brain stores information in networks. When new information plugs into an existing network, it has somewhere to live, and it will make it memorable. That's why if I tell you the word pizza, you'll remember it more compared to a food you never heard of. When I say pizza, you remember the last time you've eaten it, about Domino's types of pizzas. Those are the prior knowledge that you have. And the fourth and the most powerful one is emotional resonance. Information that has an emotional charge attached to it remembered significantly longer than the neutral information. Research shows that emotional arousal directly enhances the consolidation of memory. The stronger the emotion, the less repetitions you need. The practical implication is, when you're studying something dry, like a mechanism, a pathway, or a formula, your job is to make it matter. Find a real case, connect it to a patient story, or link it to something you actually seen. The more meaning you attach to the information, the fewer sessions your brain need to build that connection. You're not just studying smarter, you're working with how your brain actually stores things, not against it. This is the most important segment in this video, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, because what comes next is the part most study channels skip. Most of you have heard of active recall, but the research on what it actually does and how most students are still using it wrong completely changes how you should be spending your revision time. Here's the thing most students get wrong. They treat testing as a way to check whether they have learned something. It's not. Testing is how you learn. Think about it. When you reread your notes, your brain is just recognizing information that it has already seen. It feels familiar. It feels like learning. But recognition and recall are two completely different things. Feeling like you know something and actually being able to retrieve it under pressure, that's not the same. Doing this will lead to something called the illusion of learning. It's a cognitive bias that people feel like they have mastered the material only to fail in recall because they confuse familiarity with understanding. There are multiple research done on the effects of testing. These are the main findings. Rereading multiple times is dramatically less effective than reading once and testing yourself once. Studies show something interesting. People who reread reported high confidence going into exams. People who tested themselves felt less confident, but performed far better on the actual day. The method that feels harder is the one that actually works. And timing matters more than people realize. Testing yourself days after learning means you've already forgotten most of it. Studies show testing soon after learning, within the same day or day after, produces far better long-term retention. And the best type of test isn't multiple choice. It's open-ended questions. No cues, no hints, just you trying to pull information out of your brain from scratch. Because harder the retrieval, the stronger the memory traces it leaves. The protocol is simple. After studying a topic, the same day or the day after, do practice questions and try to recall what you learned rather than going through the same topic again. This will help you to understand the gaps in your knowledge, the gap between what you thought you knew and what you actually knew. That's exactly where the learning is happening. Every time you retrieve something imperfectly and then correct it, you've just done a heavy set in the gym. It's called the hypercorrection effect. This alone will change your exam results more than anything else in this video. And also during your revision sessions, rather than rereading, do some questions about the topic. This is way more better than just going through the same thing again and again. Here's something Dr. Huberman covers that almost no student applies. What you do in the hour after a study session has a measurable impact on how much of it you retain. And most students are getting this completely wrong because finishing studying feels like the end of the process. It's actually not. When you finish a session, that memory isn't fixed yet. It's still being processed. And your brain uses a specific chemical signal to decide which memories to consolidate and which to just let fade. That signal is stress, epinephrine, and corticosteroids. They are released in the moment of mild stress or excitement. They act as a messenger to your brain, saying this was important, so keep it. Research shows that arousal soon after learning significantly enhances long-term memory consolidation. Think about it this way. If you walk out of a study session and someone jumped out and scared you, you'd probably remember exactly what you were studying right before that. That's the mechanism. Your brain gets a signal that something important just happened and lock it in whatever came before it. Ancient educators actually used to throw children into a river after teaching for this exact reason. Extreme, but the biology is real. There are few practical ways you can use this mechanism to remember the information you learn for a long time. First, after a study session, don't immediately reach for your phone. If you are having caffeine, try drinking it after a study session rather than before studying. Because drinking caffeine will release epinephrine, which help to remember the information. Another one is doing exercise after studying. This will also release epinephrine and corticosteroids, which will help to remember the information. Also, you can take a cold shower. Any of these triggers a mild arousal response, which signals your brain that what it just processed was worth keeping. It will remove the need for repetition. Everything so far gives you principles. How your brain consolidates, what makes information stick, why testing works, and how to lock in information after learning. Next, I'm going to talk about 5 simple tools Dr. Andrew Huberman talks about, which you can use to learn better. And most students aren't doing any of them consistently. The first one is the gap effect. After every focused study session, take a 10 to 15 minute rest. Not your phone, just sit and close your eyes. Or take a quick 10 to 15 minute nap, or just go for a short walk. During that window, your brain is actually replaying what it just processed and will consolidate the information. It's essentially free repetitions. Most students just throw it away by immediately jumping to the next topic. Doing this will drastically improve your retention. The next one is 90-minute deep work cycles. Your brain operates in natural 90-minute focus windows. After that, the neurotransmitters that power your focus, like acetylcholine and dopamine, depletes. Pushing through doesn't get you much learning. It gets you diminishing returns. So do multiple focused 90-minute blocks separated by 2 to 4 hours of real recovery rather than the long study sessions. The next tool is sleep. Memory consolidation happens mainly during REM sleep, which increases in duration towards the morning. So if you're cutting sleep short to squeeze in more study hours, you're cutting off the most important phase of the sleep. 7 to 8 hours isn't a lifestyle preference, it's a neurological requirement. Without it, none of what you studied gets consolidated properly. You're skipping every recovery day. The next tool is meditation and NSDR, which stands for non-sleep deep rest. Research shows that nearly 13 minutes of mindful meditation done in the morning improves attention, working memory, and stress regulation just after 8 weeks. If you're struggling to focus, try meditating daily for 15 minutes. It will definitely improve your focus. And also you can do Huberman's NSDR. There are free guided sessions on YouTube. Just type NSDR on YouTube and you will find them. Try it 10 minutes before you start learning. The last tool is exercise. Aerobic exercise triggers the release of BDNF. It's a protein that promotes new neurons growth in the hippocampus, which is the part of your brain central to memory formation. 2 to 3 sessions a week is enough. It improves working memory and hippocampal function. And if you do it after studying, it also will trigger the same epinephrine release which we talked about earlier at the same time. 2 benefits in one session. These aren't hacks, they are science-based tools. Skip sleep and everything you tested yourself on gets partially lost overnight. Skip the rest gaps and your 90-minute sessions will quietly collapse into 30 minutes of real focus and an hour of illusion of study. But get this infrastructure right and every principle in this video actually compounds. Everything in this video, the testing, the arousal trigger, the 90-minute cycles, these are principles, the science behind why learning works. But knowing these principles and having a step-by-step system that puts them all together are 2 different things. I spent the last 5 years building that system, testing it inside a medical degree, failing, refining, and figuring out exactly what to do, in what order, to learn anything deeply in less time. Watch this video next to learn about that system.